Hello, hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity, your recovery-focused podcast. I tried to do a new intro and it didn't work. Hello, hello, and welcome back to Retrieving Sanity with your podcast host, Keegan, and this is your podcast for all mental health, addiction, recovery issues, and topics. Today, we're talking to someone who spent nearly 3 decades helping people whoa, this is not the right script. Hold up. Oh, no. That's what I get for thinking I had everything right. So, let me
It's
pop over
okay.
to this screen. So,
All
and
good.
yeah, it's called being human, right? So,
Yes.
welcome back to Retrieving Sanity, your recovery focused podcast with your host, Keegan. Today, we are exploring the intersection of the analytical mind and the spiritual heart. Our guest is a Harvard graduate, an engineer, and an MBA who left the corporate world to solve a different kind of complex system, the human heart. Now, Violet Lange is a Reiki master and relationship coach who has helped hundreds of women move from the exhaustion of dating burnout into fulfilling, committed partnerships. She's a survivor of complex trauma who rewired her own attachment style to find her soulmate, a man she actually met in a dream 3 weeks before they met in the flesh. And I really have to ask, real quick, is love really the most powerful force on the planet? And why does it feel like the hardest one for people to embody sometimes?
Yes. I do think it's the most powerful force on the planet, although there's lots of powerful forces, and we're at the whim and mercy of those and also in alignment with those sometimes throughout the day. And I think it's
Mhm.
hard to embody because there's a lot of bullshit out there, to be honest. You know, people are told, like, you have one soulmate and don't blow it. It's like, what? Talk about a scarcity mindset, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think there's lots of souls we could build beautiful lives with, and we have choice. That is not just like predetermined, or I can't help who I fall in love with. Like that we have choice, we are empowered, but we have to wade through the external noise, the internal noise. We have so much to transform,
Hmm.
some of us more than others, depending on our childhoods, depending on just things that happen to us in our life.
Hmm.
So I do think it's pretty hard to embody. And also I think we get taught this really watered down version of love, like, oh, love is just being nice all the time, just being kind.
Yeah.
My mom said when I was getting divorced from my first husband, she was like, but he's nice, isn't that enough? And I was like, no, it's
No.
actually not.
No.
So I think, redefining love as an individual. What do each of us think is our authentic version of love? And then can we embody that? And can we integrate, I think about the chakras, like all of our different energy centers to express love in like the most expansive way and the most authentic way.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that. And chakra talk. Alrighty, we're off to a great start. So real quick, before we get too much further, I really have to ask you too, what do you think love is if it's not just being nice all the time?
Mm. I think different people have different versions of love. To
Mm-hmm.
me, I think love is a blend of, like I said, alignment between all the different pieces of you, even if you're not into the chakra system.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not betraying a part of yourself to
Ooh.
stay in relationship. And then the tricky thing is we're always evolving, right? So maybe something you would have said or something that would have been an expression of love 5 years ago might not actually be an expression of love for you now
Mm-hmm.
because you've hopefully grown and changed.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I think love is when we are in that congruent alignment and we are speaking our truth from a place of heart and honoring ourselves and the other. It's like a reciprocity of honoring and a reciprocity of devotion. Like,
Ooh.
can our life and our love be an act of devotion just as much to ourselves as the other person, as the like higher forces that are hopefully shaping us in the right direction?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a really powerful version of love, and it's something that I wish I had been taught a little bit earlier in life too, you know? So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, where are you from? Why did you have such a bad background and you transformed your attachment style? And isn't that hard to do?
Yeah, and I would say, my background might sound bad in quotations. It was perfect for me for the work
Mhm.
that I'm doing
Yeah.
and for my soul's path. And so parts of it were gnarly and parts of it are exactly why I do the work I do today.
Mhm.
I'm from the Midwest. I grew up in a family that like went to church and looked perfect on the outside, but had a lot of dysfunction on the inside. I had experienced sexual abuse from a family member for years, some physical abuse, lots of emotional abuse, just very, very much crazy making, right? To have to perform to a certain standard academically, or be church going and all the things, and be raised by really critical and that's the only way to say it, critical parents. And then also have all of this stuff happening. However, my dad is a forester, and I developed a love of nature because we were outside all the time. And so I got to appreciate and celebrate and uplift that too, right? And my mom and dad are both teachers. And so I have a strong desire to learn and grow because of those values. So it's like, the light and the dark, and it's all going together. We need it all. And my first marriage that I mentioned, I didn't really know what I was doing. I just got married because I was scared. I was scared that I was unlovable. I was like, you know what? I'm in a relationship and it's really boring and I don't feel very satisfied and it's pretty much sexless, but it feels safe. And safe is better than feeling unlovable and undesirable. Yeah. So I got married when I was like 22, or I just turned 23, and it lasted for 4 or 5 years. And then I just couldn't anymore. I realized, like, I don't want to be in something that feels like a burden. It's not fair to me or him. And I kind of realized quickly after we got married, I was like, within 6 months, I was like, this is not the right relationship for me. But I had inherited so much of, you shouldn't get divorced. Divorce is a sin. And, just stick it out. And nice is enough. And all of that. So even just getting divorced was a big transformational journey of trusting myself and believing in myself and believing that I could maybe create something better. My mom was like, well, give up on having kids if you're going to divorce this guy. And I was 27 at the time.
Wow.
So I was like, okay. So, I think a lot of us on the transformational or spiritual path, we have to kind of discern what is our truth? What is the truth that we were raised in? What's the societal or cultural or religious truth? And then basically after getting divorced, I spent quite a few years, at least 7 years, just on that spin cycle with dating, like meeting people on the apps, getting ghosted, dating for 6 weeks, then it falling apart, dating for a year. Oh, wait, I didn't realize this about you, just like all of that stuff. Oh, and, but it was actually, again, great, even though it was so hard at the time, because I learned so much about myself. And I have so many examples now when I'm working with my clients. I can empathize with them in many of their instances. And then I just, over that course of time, had alchemized so much on myself. And I'm still alchemizing, right? It's not like you ever arrive at some nirvana place. At least I don't think we do fully. We get glimpses of it, but it's not like day to day. And then I met my partner, and then it's a different type of work, right? You do work on yourself when you're single. When you're in partnership, you still have work to do. Things come up when you have kids, when you're cohabitating, whatever, And so I always tell my clients, like, you do the work when you're single, you do the work when you're in a relationship, like, you just kind of are on the path and you just keep going, and small doses or big doses. It just depends on what you're up for at any given moment.
Okay. Wow. First, I'm really sorry that you had to go through a lot of the trauma and stuff. And like, you just put it so beautifully, because the light and the dark go hand in hand. And sometimes we don't know that what we've been through is actually going to be used to help some other people in the future. And whenever we can look at it like that lens, it's cool, it's nice. But I mean, in the middle of the shit, it just sucks. So I think one of the cool things, though, that you kind of highlighted without really saying it, though, is that your journey didn't really start until you were almost 30. And a lot of us sit here and we're like, 20s. And I mean, whenever I hit 30, it was like, okay, I'm like, I was getting out of rehab and stuff. And so my life was like, okay, like, I screwed up everything already. So what now? But for you, it was kind of the same way, because you thought that everything was just kind of going to go that one road, right? And you were married. So that's it. And like, that was kind of the end goal, right?
Yeah, I didn't realize that up until, late 20s, everything I had built in my life was based on someone else's expectation of me. Ooh. That I didn't have any authenticity. So, I mean, I shouldn't say any, but, it didn't matter if I had a fancy degree, because why did I get that degree? Was it for me, or was it to like make some status move in a society that maybe didn't even care about my best interests? Or, getting married, like I said, the first time out of fear. And So I had on the outside, like a lot of markers of success in my 20s. And then when I was, 27, I got divorced, moved, actually I moved different country. I moved to Toronto.
Wow.
Um, I took a job at a nonprofit, even though I had just finished my degree in business, because I was like, actually, I don't really want to like work for the, major consulting firm I had worked for. And
Hmm.
then I had, $200,000 of student debt that was, it was just like all the destruction phase was glorious in some ways. It just happened so fast, like within a year, it was all gone.
Mm.
Um, and what's funny is like, I have the biggest question mark about that phase of my life. Actually, not the hard stuff. The hard stuff, I'm like, okay, I can see that. It was more like,
Mhm.
wow, I spent like 10 years chasing other people's dreams.
Mm.
That's the time I wish I could get back, not
Ooh,
the other times.
yeah. Oh, man, I'm right there with you because it sucks, whenever we find out that we may not be who we thought we were. So there's kind of like an identity shift for you all over. Oh, so how did you manage that? Because that your whole world gets flipped upside down, inside, outside, black is now white, so on and so forth, and it's hard to make sense of anything. So did you start from the ashes, or did you kind of look for a spider web that had some dew on it or something?
I love those metaphors. And I had chills when you were saying, like everything changes and identity shift. And, a lot of people call that an underworld journey or a dark night of the soul. And
Mhm.
um, I mean, I'm human. I still kind of shudder. I'm like, oh, I'm probably gonna have more of those, but it's kind of good. It's kind of good right now. Like, let's not do that yet if we don't have to. But I think sometimes like when you kind of work in these, I don't know, witchy or transformational ways, you just kind of know like, okay, I got to really appreciate when times are golden because there's times when they won't be, but it feels like every time I go through a death cycle, I learn more about myself and I feel like just still tiny bit less scared of it next time.
Mhm.
Um and you can find a lot of beauty in those cycles. But in that like major destructive cycle where so much of my life was changing, um it was kind of a combination. It was less about me kind of like starting from the ashes, and it was more about, yeah, following the threads, like you said. So I had gotten injured and at the time, and I couldn't really do anything other
Mm.
than yoga.
Mm.
And but I had done yoga in the past, but I'd kind of like not been as connected to my practice.
Mhm.
But then, the universe works in amazing ways because I was injured doing yoga. I was working at the nonprofit, but I was only on like a 1 year fellowship.
Mhm.
And I knew that time was ending. And the studio I was practicing at, I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. I'm gonna like see what's up with them. And so I looked on the database of my grad school background, and the person running the company or second in command of the company went to my school. So I
Huh.
was like, okay, that's an opening. So I like had a phone call with him and he's like, do you want a job? I was like, sure.
Huh.
So it's like the injury led to yoga, more yoga. Yoga led to me having this job in California. And at that job, because I was working for this yoga company running their programming and development, and at one point their retail, I got personal development for free. I got like free yoga teacher training, free meditation training, like so much free stuff that I mean, I would have liked to have been like, oh, I totally would have paid for all those things, but maybe not. So it's kind of like this really amazing thing that happened.
Mhm.
And I moved to Los Angeles because of that yoga job for Yoga Works, which is now they're not really operational, but they were, at the time. And that's also where I met my husband. So
Mhm.
it's like this huge destruction phase following these threads then led to all of this expansion. So again,
Yeah.
like I can't wish away the destruction because then I wouldn't have had all the beauty that I'm in now.
Mhm. Yeah, you've gotta pick up the pieces to build something new, right? And
Hmm.
it's kinda like life is a lot like a Lego set because we can build something and it can break and we can just build something else, you know?
Hmm.
But I think that we do limit ourselves in a lot of different ways without even realizing it. So what were some of the things that were holding you back because you were trying to live up to other people's expectations, you were trying to fulfill other people's dreams, so what really was the spark that got your fire going?
Yeah, I think I went through a period, or I know I went through a period of a lot of deep loneliness and a lot of
Mhm.
grief.
Mm.
The grief of like the illusions that were shattering, and the ones that I was shattering too, right? Like I'm the one who ended it with my husband. So it's not like I'm just some passive victim that hard
Yeah.
things happened to me. I was co-creator in that. And yeah, there was a summer I was living in New York City and I was just felt kind of dead inside. I was just really alone. I knew people in the city, but it was just one of those weird things where I'd reach out to them and be like, I can't, I'm busy. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone through those times in your life where you're like, I'm reaching for connection and try as I may, like, I just can't get a date. I can't get a friend to respond to my text. Like, oh my God, I'm so alone.
Yeah.
And it's really hard. But then there was also just so much soul searching that came from that. And a sense of, well, I've then got to kind of create the experiences that feel right for me. And so I think the belief was, I need other people so much that I'm going to sacrifice myself and what's right for me versus connection enhances my life when I'm already connected to myself.
Ooh, okay. Oh, so is that kind of how you figured out this whole dating thing? Because, I mean, in a sense, you were talking about connection, and we're trying to connect with others in a lot of different ways in the world. And whenever we're in the 21st century, everyone's on their freaking phones now. So it's one of those things that we had to adapt to technology growing around us. And I'm sure whenever you got married, there wasn't something like Tinder online or something like that, right? And so now you have to sit there and kind of figure out what connection really looks like, right?
Yeah. In my first marriage, there definitely wasn't Tinder. When I met my husband, there was, and I had been on the apps and, had like some dates and stuff come from it. I think maybe a 6-week relationship. I can't remember, but nothing like super substantial and long term. But like half of my clients meet their partner on the apps, half of my clients meet them in real life. There's so many different ways. And, technology does impact us. It creates opportunities. It's like, how do we step into that opportunity? So for instance, a lot of women I work with are like, oh, like, what can I put on my app to like make, someone want me? And it's like, well, what can you put on the app that feels authentic, that lights you up when you read it, that makes you feel like, yes, this is congruent with who I am, even if it's not like, oh, the duck face pose or like, like the lips thing, like, or just all the things that we get taught to do, as women at least. And so I really feel like it's important to, as best as we can, be authentic, to not feel like we have to play the game. Again, like I said, stay connected to ourselves. I tend to have an anxious attachment style and be codependent. So this is for me, right? Like there might be other people who have more of an avoidant attachment style and who are a little more independent, and their lean in might be to embrace messiness, to share their feelings like uncensored, to express like need, like I actually need, this thing from this person versus trying to just be an island or be stoic. So part of me, like you were talking about, but I forgot to answer, rewiring my attachment style was recognizing that I was sovereign, that I needed to connect to myself first. I have this little cheesy phrase that I would always say to myself that I now teach my clients, which is, I'm 100% committed to myself. I will never abandon or betray myself. Ooh. So, when you're like, oh, are they going to text me back? Or like, what if this doesn't go well? Or like, oh man, we just had sex, but like, will I ever hear from them again? Or all those vulnerable moments, like, oh, I shared about my childhood trauma. Are they going to run away? Like, to just remember, it's okay. I'm committed to myself. I believe in myself. I'm not going to abandon myself. And if it's not this, then there'll be another opportunity, and having that abundance mindset we talked about. But back to your point about technology, like, I think the benefit of technology is it's normalizing diversity, neurodiversity, and other types of diversity. We can see now like so many different personal expressions in the world, which I think helps build authenticity. But what we're missing is often depth. And the depth piece is what nourishes us and sustains us longer term, I think, for most of us. But the beautiful thing is, like, I mean, I'm feeling deeply connected to you, and we just met like 30 minutes ago. So you can create depth if you have the intention that you want to, and also like some level of skill, for lack of a better word. Like, it's a skill to learn to say, this is how I feel and this is what I want. Like some people I coach, they're like, I can't tell them how I feel and what I want. It will scare them away. And I'm like, that's going to scare them away. Bye. So anyway, I'm going on a tangent, but I think we just have to be more more sophisticated about our connections, the type of
Mm-hmm.
connection we want, and balance like online connection with in-person connection,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
short-term connection with long-term connection, um, familiarity with novelty. Like it's just kind of balancing all those different things.
Yeah, and it's hard to find a balance sometimes, but I think the balance is really hard whenever we aren't connected to ourselves, like you're talking about beforehand. And so it's really interesting that you're saying those attachment styles because I'm sitting here and I'm like, I don't really know what my attachment style was besides being super codependent at one point, but also trying to be hyper independent at the same time. And that did not mesh well. I feel really sorry for my first wife. So, and how do you help someone get through that kind of thing? Because I mean, you went through complex trauma, so I'm sure you had a lot
Mhm.
of conflicting ideas and beliefs and views all at the same time. And it's kind of like, okay, well, which one is me? How did you figure that
Mhm.
stuff out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you asked that because I relate, this it's they call it a disorganized attachment style. And you're like, you have a
Yeah.
little bit of both, like,
Yeah.
okay, I feel anxious when I don't know if they like me, but once I know they like me, I'm like, get away. So I've had that, and I have clients who've had that. And I also think this idea of like the silos of attachment style is also, that's just like someone's fancy academic framework because it makes sense and it's easy to spout off. Like our it's a range, right? Like different situations will evoke more anxiousness or
Mhm.
avoidance or that disorganized style. And you can learn to be more secure over time. And also I'm just going to throw one other like monkey wrench into this thing, which is that our self is constantly evolving, right?
Mhm.
Like, what if my version of self needs to expand to include the earth as part of self and me as
Mhm.
part of the earth, right? Like,
Mhm.
or me and community. Like, it's not just this individual self of mine, there's a transpersonal self. So it gets very complicated. I don't think I'll ever find out like who I really am because there's so many pieces that I'm always
Mhm.
discovering and so many ways that we can expand our
Mhm.
perception of what is self and what is other. But
Mhm.
I do this idea of confusion really relates because in my 20s, I mean, I just remember feeling just really confused, and I'd use the word muddy. Like everything
Mhm.
just felt muddy. Like
Yeah.
I knew if I felt sad, and I knew if I felt like, high on sugar or like other, uppers, but
Uh-huh.
I wasn't able to really articulate like anything in between. I just knew I
Mm.
mainly felt off.
Yeah.
And I remember my therapist being like, wow, that's, when I started going to therapy, like, oh, that's interesting. There's like this whole range of emotions
Mhm.
that I never really looked at. So um, I think it was just over time that I started feeling more and more trust. Like, oh, this feels resonant. Like I can't even maybe say like, oh, this is true because truth is always in some ways relative. But
Mhm.
um, a lot of it was I needed safe spaces where people believed me. Like I
Mm.
didn't feel like my experience was valid in a lot of my upbringing, right? There were other people always defining my reality.
Yeah.
And when I started just being in more spiritual spaces, to be honest,
Mhm.
with people who were also on growth paths who were happy to it's not validate because it's not like it was their decision whether what I spoke was true or not, but
To
like to
accept.
provide some empathy and accept, yeah, accept. Then it got it's like then all of a sudden my compass got a little more accurate. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah. Like I can believe myself and I can trust these things coming up and I can um really trust my body. A lot of it was like, okay, well, what feels true in my body? But I'd spent so much of my life not living in my body that, like, at first I was like, I can't trust my body because it feels like crap there. Why would I trust that? But
Oh,
then it was
man.
like, oh no, I can trust it. But she needs a lot of love.
Yeah. And that's the hard part, right? Like being able to trust ourselves whenever we've kind of been relying on everyone else to define reality for us. And like you said,
Hmm.
reality is shifting. And whenever I was in therapy, I was telling my therapist, I was like, there is no such thing as an objective truth. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, there's no such thing as an objective truth because everyone's making their own truth. And so there's your truth, my truth, and everyone else's
Hmm.
truth at the same time, and that we call the world. And it's just consciousness incarnate. So it's just kind
Hmm.
of like, where do we want to set ourselves up? But it's so hard to do that whenever, I mean, the world is just trying to sometimes keep us down.
Hmm.
What's that word. It's not conspiracy because that's like everything and everyone's out to get you, but it's the opposite of where the universe is actually trying to help you out. And
Oh
it's just
yeah, conspiring to help you.
yeah, I think there's another word entirely, but
Mm,
it's one of those things that we find that through connection, and whenever we connect with ourselves, it makes it so much more visceral, I guess,
mhm,
because in some sense, it makes it real. Like connecting with others is kind of sometimes like playing a video game. It's like I'm talking to
mhm,
someone, like and you go home and you're like, wow, what was that? That was a bit, weird. But then you sit there and talk in the mirror or just talk to yourself, and it's
mhm,
like you can have a real like life-changing experience just with the conversation. So is
mhm.
that something that you kind of encourage your clients to do, is to do positive affirmations or something like that?
Yeah, I like to work at the mind level, the heart level, and the body level.
Okay.
And I know a lot of coaches are like, it's top down, like what you believe impacts your feelings, that impacts your actions. And I'm like, yeah, and also like our actions impact all these other things. And our heart actually has more brain cells than our brain, so
Mhm.
there's like more consciousness. Supposedly, I can't remember the study. I think it's like Heart Math, this organization that studies coherence and vibration and everything. But
Huh.
anyway, there's just as much, if not more, intelligence in our heart than in our
Mhm.
brain, and all this stuff on the gut biome and like how much intelligence is that. So I feel like we're constantly discovering that we are not just our thoughts, even though that
Mhm.
was a popular idea for a while. But I do think we need to have beliefs that we can go back on when we're in
Mhm.
a funk to shift our field, right? Like if
Mhm.
we're in a low vibration state, and not that we have to be love and light all the time, but if we're in a low
Mhm.
vibration state, it can help to just be like I said, I'm
Mhm.
100% committed to myself. I'll never betray and abandon myself. Or my feelings matter. My
Mhm.
suffering matters.
Yeah.
It's okay that
Mhm.
I'm human and I'm here and I'm doing the best that I can.
Yeah.
Um, and I do think, to your point, like we can have a conversation with someone or a date or a relationship and then be like, wow, I'm processing that. That was interesting. We can always learn and grow.
Mhm.
Um, there's this guy, and I'm blanking on his last name. His first name is Tom, and he's like this guy who talks about consciousness. And to your point about video games, he's like, you know, when we're in this world, we're in a multiplayer game.
Yeah.
But when we die, we're in a single player game.
Yeah.
And so then it's like, how do we kind of reconcile both of those? Like,
Mhm.
how do I remember, knowing that I'm kind of leaning codependent often? How do I remember that I'm really also in a single player game right now, me and my connection to source? And
Mm.
then if someone was leaning more towards the hyper independent and be like, oh, remember you're in a multiplayer game, like get out and talk to some people, like allow yourself to be
Uh-huh.
influenced by others. We're
Yeah.
all the drops in the ocean together, like all of that.
Oh, that's a beautiful way to look at that. And I'm going to have to use that for myself because that speaks to my subconscious, my little psyche, the little kid in me, the multiplayer, single player. Like, all right, that makes sense. But
Hmm.
one of the things that I'm kind of hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I had watched a YouTube video not too long ago that was talking about why spiritual tools, or rather religious tools, don't work for women. And I was like, very curious. So I watched the whole video and I was blown away. And I was like, wait a minute, this makes sense for me. And let me explain though, because the YouTube channel was breaking down the patriarchy, I believe,
Hmm.
and she's talking about how the religious tools that men utilize, or the major religions, are talking about sacrifice self for others. And
Hmm.
that's how I was raised. I was raised to sacrifice self for others, blah, blah, blah. And then my household didn't really make that any better. And so it was one of those things where I grew up without an ego. I grew up without an identity, rather. And so whenever she was talking about spiritual tools for women, it's about building an ego, building empowerment, and not sacrificing self, because women already do that. So if they try to do the religious tools, they just sacrifice themselves more, and they're like, oh, I'm actually really good at this. Why is that? And it's because they've been doing it forever. And the guys are the ones that need to sit there and learn to dissolve ego a little bit, to communicate and do this kind of other stuff more. But it's the women that really should be empowered to do their divine thing. So is that kind of how you would say everything felt for you? Like doing the traditional route didn't really do you well, and you kind of had to break off and be like, what the hell was all that about?
Absolutely. I mean, that was a lot of my, identity crisis and up leveling and transformation and all that we kind of talked about, and then cycles
Mhm.
of that obviously since then. Um, but I'm not running this program right now, but my signature program for a long time was called Queens of Pleasure, which is
Mm.
kind of like sovereignty and embodied pleasure. And
Mm.
both of those, church doesn't want you to do.
No.
They're like, don't have a voice, don't have power, don't have boundaries, and
Mhm.
heaven forbid, don't connect to your vagina. So anyway,
Yeah.
I feel like for all of us, men and women, are and everything in between, like we've been taught to disregard our own feminine and the
Mhm.
feminine principle of earth, embodiment, pleasure, spaciousness, connection, the we versus the I mean, but obviously without getting codependent.
Yeah.
And the presence, right? Like not being growth oriented, future oriented, like gotta achieve, gotta make so much money. That's impacted men just as much as it has women.
Mhm.
Um, and so I see that as a great loss for everyone, and also a great opportunity now that we get to reclaim those things.
Mm.
So yes, a big part of my work is teaching women that their feelings matter, their suffering matter, they have a voice, they have choice, and that they can date in a way that's discerning. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
exactly sure the right word, but a lot of my clients are like, oh, well, I was pissed off that he showed up 20 minutes late. And I'm like, cool. Well, what did he say when you told him that? She's like, oh, I didn't tell him that.
But
Like,
why?
why? And she's like, well, because he's going to think I'm angry, or like, it's okay. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, you don't have to say it rude, but you can just be like, oh, wow, I'm feeling kind of like bummed and frustrated that you were late and I almost left.
Mhm.
I feel like both of our time is really valuable. What's up with that?
Yeah.
And then, because not only are you then teaching yourself that your truth matters and you can do that, that you're safe, like most likely this person is going to not create bodily harm. I'd hope not if you
Mhm.
say that thing. And you get to know that person. If they're like, oh, well, why are you so uptight? Quit being such a bitch. Then you're like, okay, I'm not going to go on another date with this person. But if they're like, oh my gosh, I should have texted you. I'm so sorry. I was stuck in traffic and I kind of felt nervous about this date. And I was hoping it would be as late. And then I couldn't find parking. Then you're like, okay, cool. Now at least I know where you're coming from. But next time, please text me.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity. I feel like even when we have the uncomfortable situations or emotions,
Mhm.
when we are willing to speak our truth in a heartfelt way, then we learn and we
Mhm.
grow and we can kind of discern, do I want to spend more time with this person or not? And the
Mhm.
same thing about I mentioned on our profile, like our profile should be an extension of who we are, and that will also communicate who we are, what we want, and what love looks like for us, like we were talking about at the beginning, right? Because my version of what a healthy relationship is might be different than yours.
Mhm.
And so it's about truth coming from a place of embodiment. And the pleasure piece is also important because it's not just like, hey, this is my truth. I need 20 things from this man and he better have a bank account of this much. Like that is also not going to work. Right. So
No.
it's like the truth that's grounded in pleasure, the seed of truth that's like in this field of pleasure. And the pleasure
Mhm.
is like, oh, well, actually what feels really good is to be seen and appreciated and to be able
Mhm.
to co-create magic with someone. And maybe it doesn't really matter how much is in his bank account because I feel loved in a way I've never had before. Like
Mhm.
that is the goal. That's more important than these kind of criteria that we might have on a list. So I'm kind of,
Mhm.
again, going on, I'm a big talker, but yeah, truth kind of grounded in pleasure.
Yeah. Okay. And real quick side note, don't worry about going down rabbit holes. That's what we do here at Retrieving Sanity
Yes.
because sanity is the name of the rabbit and it's running. So
I love it.
so one of the things though, whenever you talk about embodying pleasure, like what does that look like? Because like you said, whenever we're growing up, a lot of us are taught like, no, pleasure is bad, or figuring out different things to make you feel good are bad and stuff. And that
Mhm.
leads someone like me to be like, all right, well, what makes me feel good? And then also what makes me not feel, because feelings are apparently
Mhm.
bad and I can't turn one off. They all get shut off. And I found that out the hard way. So what exactly does
Mhm.
embodying pleasure look like to you? And how do you teach your customers, your clients about it?
I'm glad that you mentioned that, right? Because it's not just, oh, I'm going to choose feel pleasure and feel nothing else. And people oftentimes will tell me, like, well, why don't you talk about, um, you know, leaning into your grief and leaning into your anger and like talk about all those things. And I do, especially with my clients. But if you lean into your pleasure in a conscious way, the grief will come up that you've denied yourself pleasure before. You know, the anger will come up when you were shamed as a child because, you know, whatever you touched yourself, or, you know, I don't need to come up with more examples, but to your point, I think we get taught like only these feelings are good. And so if you can't feel those, and you shouldn't feel anything. And I do want to make the distinction between like kind of surface level pleasure, which we sometimes use to numb out, and then pleasure that feels a little more like sustainable. And I mean, I'm a big fan of self pleasure. I think self pleasure can be beautiful. And there's a way that we can do it, like, again, to avoid or to numb out or to run away. I use a lot with my clients something called a yoni egg. Have you heard of those?
I have heard of those.
Okay. So yoni eggs are crystals that you put inside your vagina. And they bring the properties of the crystal, plus your intention, plus pelvic floor therapy, like squeezing, breathing, doing different kind of visualizations. And it's a way for us to stay really connected to our body. It's not necessarily about orgasm, although that can happen too. So yeah, it's not about necessarily orgasm, but it's about what helps me feel alive and what helps me feel expansive and relaxed and in that parasympathetic nervous system. And some people could even say then that allows you to be in your social nervous system, like your polyvagal nervous system. If you're in fight or flight, you can't really connect that well, right? So you want to be able to be, hopefully, you know, relaxed enough to stay connected to self and then be open to connecting with other. So where I'm going with this is, it's not so much about pleasure and our societal definition of pleasure is just being sexual. Like you can experience pleasure from seeing a beautiful sunrise. You know, you can experience pleasure from like getting a great massage that's not sexual at all. So I think a lot of us, you know, because of our childhood trauma and because of the culture we live in and religious expectation and shame, we live in our heads. And so getting into our bodies, getting into our five senses, getting into like a relational field, I think is all very healing. And what I found is, as you take that kind of descending current into the body and into the five senses and into the earth, you start to feel resourced. And once you feel resourced, you're like, this is cool. Like maybe I actually want to like connect with my galactic support team. Okay, that's cool. Maybe now I want to like go back in here. It's like, it just opens different pathways.
Oh man, I love that because it's so on point, because I love how you mentioned that we're kind of taught or raised to only feel certain emotions. And a long time ago, whenever I first started the podcast, I was like, well, being a guy in today's world in America, I was taught it's only okay to be happy, angry, hungry, and horny. So I can only be and it's just it is not really like, see, it's not very, it's like, yeah, you know. And so whenever I got into therapy, like my therapist had a feeling wheel on the ground that was my seat. But I would sit there and I would just sit there and look at it, just be like, oh, there's so many more emotions. And it was really interesting because each one can be so refined and so like nuanced that I felt it before, but I had no idea how to describe it. I didn't know that there was language to describe those feelings because I'd shut myself off to them so long ago, you know. And I really do think that, like you said, if we're not feeling safe with ourselves, we can't feel safe around others. And I know for myself, I didn't feel safe around me. I couldn't trust myself. None of those things. And I imagine that that's how a lot of women feel growing up in today's world, because it's a scary ass place out there, you know? And so, like, how do you help people kind of see past the shadows of other people's lanterns, you know? Because we're trying to go towards someone else's lantern. We're trying to go over there, but we have people crossing in the way, and it kind of maybe blocks the light for a little bit, and we think it goes away forever. Maybe someone else is there before we get there, and that's depressing. Or maybe there's something that passes in front of it and it scares us because it looks like a puppet shadow that's just like a shadow puppet that's really mean and angry, but in reality, it's just a different angle of someone's face, you know? So how do you make
That's
them get past that?
It's such a good question. And before I get to that, I just want to say to your point about putting language around things like, oh, I've felt that before, but I didn't have the language. I think that's why this podcast that you're doing and so many other opportunities out there for people to put their experiences into context really matters. I mean, we don't want to focus too much on, the media or the external. However, I think that's why we're in this time of great awakening, is because of that resonance. Like, oh, I heard this thing on a podcast and it really resonated with me, and it opened my mind that maybe that might be part of my experience too. And anyway, I just want to like uplift the work that you're doing. I think it's really important.
Thank you.
And and yeah, in terms of like, well, how can I trust my path and who comes into my path? And I was speaking with a client today, and she's actually going through a breakup. She has been working with me off and on for like 2 or 3 years, and she has been in this relationship for over a year, maybe 18 months. And there's a lot of really good things, and then there was a lot of things that that were too big of a sacrifice and compromise for her, and also too hard for the person she was dating. He just wasn't willing to grow or be open-minded in the ways that she needed. He was kind of doubling down on his rigidity and all these things. And anyway, I think they're both great people, but they both have their own wounds. And I told her, I was like, I'm so proud of you, because you really were a yes to this full journey that you have been on, and you have worked through and alchemized so much through it. And the outcome is different than you were expecting, but you're taking all those gifts with you, and you can trust yourself more and more. And so I think it's a process of trusting more and more. Like, because she got together with this person doesn't mean she didn't trust herself. Like, no, it meant that this was the perfect relationship at this point in her journey. And the sad truth is we cannot control other people, right? Like, she can't control that her partner, was not willing to grow in certain ways. I mean, I hope it never happens, but I can control what my partner does. If he dies, if he, is unfaithful, if, like, I can only control myself. And the kind of double-edged sword of this is that we need to trust ourselves, and we also need to be open to wisdom of others. And that's not always from our friend group. Sometimes our friend group like just wants to reinforce an old narrative or wants us to stay the same. And sometimes, because I'm thinking about like, sometimes women are like, oh, I'm working on my dating life. And I'm like, how? And they're like, well, I like talk about my love life with my friends at the bar. Like, that's not working on your love life. So we do need like external input, but like from the right sources, which is, I'm biased, but like coaches, therapists, books that inspire you, podcasts that inspire you. And the other thing I'll say is, time will tell, and intention matters. So I tell my clients, when you go into a date, especially the first date, but even ongoing, I think an intention that's helpful is, show me who this person is. I want the truth of this person. I want to know, their soul is maybe a little too grandiose, but like, show me the truth. Instead of, oh, I hope he likes me, or like, I hope it's the one. It's like, well, what if you think it's the one and then it's not the one? Because your mind told you that it was before you even got the like real world information about this person. So anyway, I think we can set intentions for truth. We can be willing to go into the shadowy places ourselves, because if the truth is they're not the right fit for us and we're willing to embrace that, we're going to have some grief in the short term, but we'll move through it. Just like this client, like, she's going through a grieving process now, but I'm 1,000% certain she's going to meet someone who's an even better fit, who's going to nourish her in different ways. So, and I think we can all benefit from our own metaphysical practices to deepen our intuition, right? Like, we can't just outsource our intuition to other people. We need to be doing our practices, whether that's yoga or divination or calling in the directions or working with drums and shamanic circle or medicine journey, or, there's like so many ways that we can do our work. But the more we refine our kind of inner knowing, then the more hopefully we notice sooner. And if we don't notice, it's because that needed to happen. We needed to have this experience in order to wake up to, XYZ within us. So, and in terms of the fear, I mean, like, I have a lot of trust issues. I still worry, like, oh, what if my husband cheats on me? Or what if these bad things happen to my kids? Or like, I have a little bit of this kind of OCD fear that comes in. And part of that is my trauma. Part of that is just probably how my brain works. And, having gone through, like hard things many different times in my life. And at the same time, like, it's my spiritual practice to be like, you know what, I'm going to lay this fear on the altar of love. and just live boldly no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And still send Reiki to my kid when she's going to school because I want her to stay safe and come home from school. But yeah, I think, I'm not an expert in like what's fear and what's reality, because that's something I have to live every day.
Yeah. You just hit a lot of really good points, and I'm sorry to say this, but one of the things that I've got to ask is, do you think that we can see you on in the future? Because I just realized we're further into this episode than I would have liked, because holy cow, like this conversation just went whoa.
The rabbit went fast. The sanity rabbit. Yeah, I can come back. We can do another episode, no problem. I've had a lot of fun too. It's been great.
Sweet. Yeah, I think I need to make another mascot for the podcast, and it's the white rabbit from Alice in Wonderland with a little watch. That's I'm late. But where can people find you if they're looking to utilize your help and get your spiritual knowledge about the dating world and how to embody their embody their personal pleasure? Yeah, there we go.
So they can go to my website, but disclaimer is from 2018. I'm in the process of rebuilding a website, so it's not super current. You're not going to be able to find my offerings and stuff there. But if you want to just like learn more about my story or see some of my testimonials or something, go to violetlange.com. But I work really deep with people, and I love getting emails and connecting. So the best way to actually reach out to me is just violet@violetlange.com. And I'm happy to either be like, oh, this book would be great for you, or let's hop on the phone. Maybe you're like a good candidate for this program I'm running. I'm in a new phase in my business, so I'll have other offerings coming up. I do group programs, and I do one-on-one, and I do retreats. But I like to consider myself a little bit more like a cosmic matchmaker, or like an oracle and a mystery school. So I'm not like, yo, I'm on Instagram 24 hours a day. So if you find me on social media, you'll probably be disappointed. But I do have a podcast also called The Pleasure Path. So you can find my podcast, The Pleasure Path. Yeah.
Awesome. I think you were on episode 180 something. Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been dormant for a while, off and on, but
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be like 100% consistent in that kind of thing, because it's a creative work, like creativity comes and goes and life happens, and creativity is just a part of life. So it depends on how we work with it. But
that was so wise. Thank you.
Of course. And no, thank you just for sharing all of your wisdom with us, because I know that there's probably many, many people out there that are going to hear this episode, and whatever little seed was planted a long time ago is either going to sprout real high and be like, oh, hey, there's the answer. Or people are going to get the seeds planted, and then maybe who knows what's going to make that one sprout, And there was something that you said earlier too, that I want to make a quick note of, because I haven't heard anyone else say this before, and it's something that I actually really like to do, and it's to sacrifice my fear on an altar of sorts, because it's like, what do I give? Hey, I don't want it. I don't want this. Can you take it, please? Like, but the thing is too, is that I've learned to embody and hold on to fear. I've learned to embody and hold on to anger and guilt and shame and all this other bad, or quote unquote bad stuff. But that's one of the things, is that if I can offer it up to the higher good, to whatever is going to listen and take it, then if it works, let it work, And so not a lot of people realize that it doesn't have to be like tithings or money, physical things that we sacrifice for ourselves or others, but it can actually be what we're feeling that we're afraid of, maybe. So thank you for pointing that out for other people out there that are wondering, what can they do whenever they don't have money at church, or they don't have money to give people, whatever. I don't know. I guess it just doesn't work for the Red Cross and the bucket guy in front of Walmart. So, but real quick, Violet, I do have to ask, do you think that you're ready to play our video games? God, you got me on video games.
It is kind of a video game because I'm online and we're on video. But yes, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Awesome. So, Violet, our game today is the Love Alchemist Lightning Round. So I'm going to read a series of dating scenarios or spiritual concepts, and I need you to categorize it as lead, something that needs to be transmuted or healed, or gold, a sign of alignment. And I need you to also give a practical engineer's tip or a spiritual tool for each one. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Awesome. Scenario number 1. He's perfect on paper, but you feel bored on the second date.
That is lead.
Lead.
So that's something that can possibly be transmuted, but my tip is to, is the boredom coming from you? Is it coming from the other person? If you go into a third date, can you make it more interesting? Like do something that you would find fun. And if you're doing a fun activity and you're still bored with this person, then that's kind of a sign. So I would just be really intentional. And I would ask yourself, like, how connected am I to my own passion and my own embodiment? So maybe do a little bit of sensuality with your 5 senses. When you're not on the date, to stay connected to that part of you. And then, or on the date, whatever.
What's your boat?
But then the last one is, when I hear perfect on paper, I'm wondering if there was no paper and you kind of ripped up your list, like what is it that you need in order to feel safe and also excited?
Ooh, okay. I love that. And I do think people should tear up their list before they get there and just say, screw it. Let's see how it goes.
Totally.
And number 2, using a pendulum to choose your dating app photos.
I think this is gold. I use metaphysical tools all the time. I think I would use that, and I would just layer on, I have some best practices, and I'll just share a few.
Okay.
Like wearing sunglasses in all of your photos, not a great idea. People need to be able to see your eyes, having a blend of like full body and close-ups, not having closed body posture and like hunched over, people want to see and feel like the fullness of you. So yeah, using a pendulum is a good idea. And, I'm pro lightly using AI and lightly using some of these tools because we're not meant to just do it all ourselves or working with a coach or whatever. So yes, that's gold. That's gold. And, it can become even more golden with a few other things.
Ooh, thank you for sharing a little bit of your dating expertise with us. And I guess that's our next episode will be more about the bodily senses and how to incorporate that into the dating world, because that would be a big one because number 3, you have a disagreement about the bill on a date. Is that lead or gold?
I think it kind of depends, it depends on what the disagreement is and who it's between. If it's between the 2 people on the date, like, I thought you were covering it and I thought whatever. I actually think it can be used to learn more about this person. So in some ways it's kind of gold because anytime you hold differences, you learn about the other person. And it does not necessarily mean that you're going to be connected, but polarity, like opposites attract and then similarity binds. So having some amount of opposite is like, okay. So let's say the one person is like, oh no, I want to split it. And the other person's like, no, I want to cover it. Then you're learning about that person's values. They want to be integrity. They want reciprocity, all that. If it's an argument like with a server, like, oh, I thought that was this, and this. I mean, you can look at it as, okay, this person is comfortable speaking their truth. But if they're being rude about it, then like that's lead, So it kind of really depends on the context. I would say, my intuitive sense is that it's lead. Like, I don't like a lot of disagreements, especially about somewhat petty things, but I think it could be used. It could be a golden opportunity. And I'll just share one quick tool, which is this simple sentence: I feel blank, I want blank. So, I feel taken aback about this. You asked me to dinner. I'm so sorry. Like, I thought that meant you were paying. I just want to clarify like what this is and what you were expecting, because I was confused. And I also don't want to bring in my own expectation that you just pay for everything. So it's like, it's an opportunity for dialogue anytime you share how you feel and what you want.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's another great insight that someone should be able to use, and maybe I need to refine that a little bit more. Um, but our next one, number 4, is feeling butterflies in your stomach. Is that anxiety or attraction?
Mm, I think I'm
I
trying
mean,
to
it can
feel
go
into
both
it.
ways too.
I know. Um, I'm going to say that that's oftentimes anxiety. I know that's not a popular answer, but
Hmm.
I'm going to say that that's lead, um, because sometimes the anxiety is like that rush of the chemicals that we had in our old trauma response, right? Like
Yeah.
trauma. Oh, I'm like hoping maybe this person can meet all my unhealed needs, and I'm projecting my mother and
Mm.
father onto them. But it can be worked with, and I would work with that through like breath, deep breathing, maybe doing like a solar plexus meditation, um, getting grounded, like going out on the earth barefoot if you can, if it's not bad weather.
Mhm.
Um, because I think butterflies are different than desire, right?
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
desire is like, ooh, I feel attracted to this person. The butterflies to me are a little bit more about expectation and performance. Like, can they meet all my needs and can I meet theirs? So like
Mhm.
um it's not bad to have them, but I would look more for what I call like spiritual sparks or embodiment sparks. Like spark to me is a little better than butterfly. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I like that too. Spark better than butterfly. Catch the wings of
Mhm.
the butterfly on fire. There we go. Number 5. He mentions his crazy ex within the first 20 minutes.
Oh, that is lead.
Good.
Yeah, that is lead. Oh my god, don't talk about an ex, especially on the first date.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Do you got a spiritual tool for that one? Is it just GTFO?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually like I feel like if people are being really negative or talking about exes on the first date, that is kind of a hard pass for me.
Mhm.
But a spiritual tool would be to make a lighthearted comment like, "Oh, are you psyching me out here? Are you talking about your ex on our first date? Like, hello. Didn't she read whatever, meme that don't do that?"
Yeah.
I don't know, like maybe make a joke and see, but I mean, it probably just tells me either they don't necessarily have a ton of relational intelligence or they're just still really processing with their ex. And
Mhm.
maybe neither are what you're looking for.
Yeah. So I hope not. Number 6, final one, the Goldilocks phase. How do we know that someone is just right?
um, yes. I don't think we actually know someone is just right. I don't think there is anyone who's going to be just right.
Mm.
So, I actually think that's led. Even though I talk about the Goldilocks phase in my
Uh-huh.
podcast and with other people,
Mhm.
um, I think it's more that we have to get good at knowing what isn't right in order to find what is right.
Mm.
Um, and because things can change so frequently and so much, I think it's just better to stay aligned with like this feels the most resonant of my choices right now, and I'm going to lean into this.
Mm.
Um,
Okay.
so this, I think, Goldilocks is gold because she's being discerning.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, so I'm gonna say that idea is gold, but we don't want to become complacent. Just be like, oh, okay, this is just right, or we don't want to look for perfection.
Mm. Okay. I like that a lot. And I think I'd have to agree, because whenever it's like it's just right, next day could definitely not be right. So it's kind of like
Hmm.
in the moment kind of thing. Like where is each person at in the moment? But
Hmm.
that's just my limited experience. So uh let's see. And with that being said, I've got to make sure I get this proper before I screw it up again. And I already did, but because you played our wonderful The Love Alchemist Lightning Round, we have decided to honor you with the title of the Architect of Sacred Alignment for Retrieving
Oh,
Sanity. So thank
I
you for
love
playing.
that.
Oh,
Thank you.
of
That's so
course.
fun.
Well, I appreciate you being on the show and everything because I mean, everyone has to figure out a little bit more way to get connected with themselves so that they can connect with others and then really make some magic happen. But I've got
Mhm.
one last question for you. Violet, the name of this podcast is Retrieving Sanity, and we explore how all facets of living life impact mental health. Looking at the incredible motley adventures of your life, what does retrieving sanity personally mean to you today? And what's one practice or perspective you believe is crucial for anyone on that journey?
Mm. Yeah, to me, retrieving sanity just means becoming more and more connected to the wholeness of yourself.
Mm,
And that's always changing. It's like a kaleidoscope, right? You
yeah.
really have to keep turning the wheel. So yeah, keep turning the wheel of the kaleidoscope. And I didn't get a chance to mention this earlier, but I'm a big fan of dream work. And so keeping a dream journal, writing down your dreams. If you're not into dreams, like walking meditation, anytime you can get in a liminal space
Hmm.
and yeah, get beyond the noise of the outer world.
Okay. I love that. I love that. Thank you. So with that being said, everyone out there, thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity on WDJY 99.1 FM. And as always, you gotta try to love yourself. We gotta love others first, but uh I said that was so wrong. So let me restart that. Oh my gosh. Thank you for listening to Retrieving Sanity on WDJY 99.1 FM. And as always, try to love yourself, love others if you can, but you got to love yourself first. And if you're having any mental health crisis, you can dial 988. And if you're in the LGBTQ plus, they changed it up. And if you're in the LGBTQ, then dial the Trevor Project up in Canada and they'll take care of you up there. And 741-741 is a number you can text as well if you don't feel like calling someone. So, Violet, is there anything else that you would like to leave the audience with this evening?
No, this has been a wonderful conversation. You're a great host. I've had so much fun. And um, yeah, just to everyone out there, find what brings you pleasure and is sustainable.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Violet. I'm looking forward to our next conversation. Everyone out there, I hope you are as well. And we will see y'all next week. With that said, much love. Sean.